The city of Lowell was the setting of a sad coincidence today. On the same day, a fast-moving fire killed 7 people, including 3 children, in an apartment building on Branch Street. Victor Rosario, serving a life sentence in a notorious fire from Lowell's past, was released from prison. On Monday, a judge overturned Rosario's conviction on murder and arson charges. We'll take a closer look at the facts of that case in just a moment, but first, more on today's deadly fire. Flames broke out at this apartment complex just before 4 a.m. and quickly spread to 3 alarms as several people called for help.
A patrolman on duty came upon the fire. I think he heard people crying for help. And I do know that some people, I'm not sure if they were tenants or bystanders, went to the fire station, which is only 100 yards down the street, and banged on the door calling for help.
The 7 victims were found in 2 separate apartments on the 3rd floor. Officials have not released their names, and the cause of the fire is still under investigation. But State Fire Marshal Stephen Cohn says the building's safety features are being scrutinized.
There is such a value to sprinkler systems, but at the time this building was built, it would not have required sprinklers to be installed. There are numerous reports that there were no smoke alarms operating at the time of the fire, but it is too early in the investigation to make any comment.
WGBH News will continue following this story online and on radio tomorrow morning at 8:20. Morning Edition host Bob C. will talk with Lowell Mayor Rodney Elliott about how his city is coping with this loss. Turning now to a major twist in a deadly fire from Lowell's past. As mentioned, Victor Rosario was freed on $25,000 bail today, more than 3 decades after his conviction on murder and arson charges. Rosario has long maintained his innocence, claiming he was railroaded by overzealous investigators trying to explain one of the city's most infamous fires. It had been a chilly March night in 1982, but in Lowell's Hispanic quarter, an inferno raged, consuming a 3-story tenement and leaving 8 people dead, 5 of them children. Given the speed of the fire, police immediately suspected foul play, and 2 days later arrested 24-year-old Victor Rosario. After hours of interrogation, Rosario signed a confession that he and 2 friends threw Molotov cocktails into the building to avenge a drug deal gone bad. But the confession was in English. Rosario only spoke Spanish. Despite that and numerous other irregularities, Rosario was convicted of murder and sentenced to life in prison. That is, until today. Well, the irregularities in Rosario's case may have faded away if not for his tenacious attorneys and the media, including our partners at the New England Center for Investigative Reporting. And joining me now is Jennifer McKim, a reporter with NECIR. Welcome, Jennifer. Well, you've been around a long time, and given all the questions surrounding this case, are you surprised that they vacated it?
This happens from time to time, and I must say it's one of those moments in journalism where you really feel like you've had some impact, and it really is some of the greatest moments I think in our careers, when you feel like you've raised questions and made people to think differently and maybe change the outcome. Yeah, because there was a tenacious young reporter that was on this. Well, so there's no question that Victor Rosario was at the scene of the fire. He admits he was. But how did he come to be charged in the first place? Well, my understanding is he was there at the fire. He actually tried to save people.
That's what he says.
That's what he said. He claims that he was there, that he was actually trying to knock on the glass to break it in, to go in and help, and he was sort of pulled back by the heat and left, and that was how he was at the fire.
And other people said, though, that they saw him with his left arm raised, suggesting that he might have thrown something in.
Exactly. There was a witness who saw him there. He says he was there to try to help people, but the witness thought he was trying to throw something.
So originally the theory was that he and these 2 pals had thrown Molotov cocktails. I mean, that's a pretty distinctive device. I mean, it's got a casing. It has usually some kind of gas or flammable material in it. Was there ever any evidence of a cocktail found in there?
There was no evidence of an accelerant or a cocktail found on the premises.
And how do they stick to that theory then?
Well, so at the time of it all moved very, very quickly. There was this outrageous, awful fire, just like we're seeing now, and people really wanted to find out what happened. They wanted to find someone responsible. Within hours, he was in a room being investigated by police, and by his own discussion. He was a serious alcoholic. He was apparently delirious half the time when he was talking. He was talking about himself as the Son of God, and so it's very unclear whether what he told them had any truth to it at all.
So some people are denying that he was that delirious because he ended up signing this confession. So there's this, one of the irregularities is that the confession that he signed was in English. However, apparently there were translators there for him. His first language was Spanish, but would that make a difference if there's somebody there translating?
Well, he was Puerto Rican, and he had a translator who said at the time that he had confessed, but the confession was in English. But later, this same translator recanted and said the man was completely out of his mind when he was speaking.
So there's this other twist to the story. His attorney, who was a public defender at the time, was at the same time he's trying to defend Victor Rosario, he is charged with leaving the scene of a fatal accident, a hit and run, where he killed 2 people.
Exactly.
So he was, you know, he had a conflict. He had other things in his mind.
Exactly, and that was part of the reason why the judge did overturn the case, saying that this man was not properly defended by an attorney. He was clearly thinking of other things.
Yeah, I mean, he was so focused on his own that he wasn't even picking up on the nuances, like the fact that there was no evidence found on the scene of a Molotov cocktail.
Exactly. And also, I think one of the things that's really important to think about is over time, the forensic evidence has changed a lot, and the way we look at crime scenes has changed a lot. So that back in the day in 1982, when the investigators saw this, they saw certain burn signs at the actual location that made them think this is what happened. But now we look at things in a different way, and we know how to look at it. And for that reason, there's also a lot of questions raised about whether or not he caused this fire.
I mean, one of the theories was that he was avenging a drug deal gone bad. Was there ever any connection made between the people in the house and any kind of a drug deal?
I'm not sure that there has been any connection at all in that way. And there was 2 other people who were also charged, and the cases never went forward.
I mean, is this a case where they're going to prosecute again, or are they going to go back and look at every bit of the evidence? I mean, it's possible that it was started, but it was March, it's winter month here. It's possible that it was started by a heater.
Well, the Middlesex District Attorney's Office says they're planning to appeal. They filed paperwork today saying they're planning to appeal this case. So I imagine we'll be hearing about this again.
The lead fire investigator on the story, who has steadfastly maintained, he says, despite these irregularities, and he has said very, very recently, he believes they have the right man. And if it wasn't Victor Rosario, what happened?
Exactly. Well, that's what I'm not sure we'll ever find out. That building is now completely razed. There's nothing there, so there's no really way to, all we can do is look back at what happened and try to think about it. Again, things have changed from the time that he was doing his work, and so they will kind of go back over and we'll see what happens.
I mean, because there are photographs from the time. Dick Lair, another great investigative reporter from the Boston Globe, has these photographs where you can see the burn pattern. So they must have documented this thing pretty well so that they can go back and reconstruct at least some of it.
Right, and at the time, again, the way they looked at burn patterns back in 1982 are different from now. So where they thought it looked like it was coming in 2 different places in the building, where they thought that these were Molotov cocktails going in. Now they're saying that this is the way an accidental burn could have happened.
Do you know what happened to the other 2 guys?
I think they moved back to Puerto Rico, and they're now both dead. So I'm not sure exactly what. Another interesting sort of twist to this story is that Victor Rosario in prison became an ordained minister, and he actually got married to a woman who he's now spending the first time in his life outside of prison with. But he actually says that it was a blessing for him to have had this all awful thing happen, because it probably saved his life.
Yes, because he, by his own admission, was not going anywhere.
Exactly.
He was a young guy not going anywhere. Right. Jennifer McKim, thank you so much for that.